So let me start off by saying thanks for being here. I'm Sharon Tapper. I'm the Executive Director of the Music Managers Forum US, the MMF-US. Thank you for joining us today. If you are new to the MMF, welcome. If you've joined us before, welcome back. If you're not already familiar with our work, let me just give you a quick thumbnail sketch of who we are. The MMF-US was established in 1993. We are the leading trade association for artist managers and self-managed artists in the United States. We are a registered 501c6 not-for-profit, and we rely on the support of our members and the generosity of our sponsors to provide our programming throughout the year. If you aren't already a member, please consider becoming one. It's really simple. Just go to our website, mmfus.com, and click on the application button. We serve our needs in several ways, but at the core, what we do is education, networking, and advocacy. So through educational webinars like today, we're able to support managers and artists by providing continuous professional development within an ever-evolving music industry. And through our advocacy work, we provide a collective voice to affect change for a fairer and more transparent music industry. We also provide networking opportunities, both virtually in the form of webinars and in-person events through our community meetups and all-day summits. And it's really in these situations that our community learns to share and connect with one another. So all of these things are really important. And also through this, being able to connect with one another in this form is also equally as important. We're also part of a larger global network. So we're part of the IMMF, which is the International Music Managers Forum, which connects us with 65 MMFs around the world. So that's Europe, Latin America, Asia, Australia, and Africa. So there really is a true global connectivity as well. If you want to stay informed with our events, it's really easy. Just go to and just literally put at MMF-US, and there will be a plethora of ways you can stay connected with us. Let's get down to business and why we're here. Recording artists and music professionals with disabilities, or better known as RAMPD, is at the forefront of leading awareness and affecting change surrounding neurodivergence and disabilities within our industry. They are the trusted partners on this subject with Netflix, TIDAL, and the Recording Academy, where they've worked with them to make their environments more inclusive and accessible. 1 in 5 Americans navigate life with a mental health condition, neurodivergence, or disability. They come in many forms, some of them visible, some not visible, and we're really blessed to have some amazing individuals from RAMPD with us today to speak with us on how to navigate this subject between ourselves and in the industry, and to build a culture of authenticity within the industry. So please join me in welcoming Arthur Gwynne, who's Operations Manager at RAMPD, along with RAMPD PR members, Jai Yoko and Grimm, and hopefully at some point Shelly Hartman will join us. In the meantime, I also want to thank our ASL interpreter, Jill, who is here for you to access as you need to. Arthur, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hi, hello everybody. So thank you again, Sharon, for such a wonderful introduction. Again, my name is Arthur Gwynne. I'm a big and tall white guy with way too much red hair, and I identify as neurodivergent. It's wonderful to be in this space with y'all. Some accessibility notes. We do have an ASL interpreter here on this call with us. If you are in need of ASL interpretation, all you need to do is click on Jill's video and click pin, and then you'll be able to see Jill through the entire meeting. You can also turn on captions by clicking the closed caption button at the bottom of the screen. So my name is Arthur. I'm operations here at RAMPD. We've been around for about 2.5 years. We were founded by Lachi Music, who is on the Grammy board. Sharon is on our advisory board, along with several other prominent leaders in both the music industry and the disability community. We have a very large community of folks that are really oriented around the intersection of disability, neurodivergence, rare disease, and the music industry, whether it's the folks that are in front of the line that are performers and musicians and instrumentalists, or those on the backside, which are like the managers or the sync agents, or just those that are working in the corporate side of the music industry, and everything in between. So first, I'd like to give a little space for our other members that are here for the panel today to introduce themselves. So why don't we start with Jay?
Peace and love, everybody. Appreciate you all coming through today. My name is Jai Yoko. My pronouns are she, her, and they. I am a Black lady with dreads, goals, and today I have on a green sweatshirt. I identify as neurodivergent, and I am an artist manager and project manager in the music industry. I'm super excited to be here today. Absolutely love the Rant family. So anytime we get to come and represent for us, I'm always going to be down. So looking forward for this combo.
Perfect. Thank you, Jane. Can you talk a little bit about what you do in your career?
Yeah, so my typical day by day is some type of way teaching and educating when it comes to music business. So my forte and what I love to do is teach how money is made in the music industry. Especially working with rising artists and independent artists, there is a lot of confusion of figuring out royalties and copyrights and contracts and all of these things. So my favorite thing to do is actually teach these things so people learn how to, if you would, fish and stand on their own versus waiting for somebody to feed them. Aside from that, I help with releasing projects, doing rollout plans, doing project management, helping people launch brands, getting different partnerships. I'm kind of that person you need when you're just trying to figure something out, whether it's how do I get booked, how do I get this contract done, how do I register my copyright. I'm the brain normally of my crew.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. And Grim, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yes, hi. So happy to be here representing RAMPD. My name is Nancy Grimm-Kells, and I go by Grim. I use they, them pronouns. I make music as Spartan Jetplex, and I'm also the founder and executive director of Grimalkin Records, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit. I am a white, non-binary, disabled, and neurodivergent person, and I have long curly black hair, some silver intermixed, and wearing a red shirt, and behind me is a pride flag. It's my background. Did you want me to say any more about Grimalkin or?
Yeah. What does Grimalkin get up to? Yeah.
Yeah. So our mission is to mentor and support queer, trans, BIPOC, and disabled artists, and we do that in a bunch of different ways. Like we'll help people with releasing their music, promoting it, marketing it. We hold events, shows. We have an annual festival every year in October. We have a production and a mentoring network that we can connect people with. And we also hold workshops. So yeah, again, really excited to be here representing RAMPD and with everyone here.
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Grim. Great. So just wanted to, well, I guess I don't need to share that part. But I want to talk a little bit about RAMPD. And thank you again, Sharon, for the introduction. As Sharon mentioned, RAMPD is a global network of industry professionals with disabilities. And we work both with the community and with venues and with events companies to make sure that accessibility and inclusion are top of mind as we are kind of like building and rebuilding the industry. RAMPD has a wider community of folks that are just here for the story and the message and the vibe, but we also have our pro members such as Jay and Grim here. Pro members are vetted by other pro members as being movers and shakers in the industry and as identifying as disabled or neurodiverse in some way. And those pro members make up our executive committees, and they vote on our executive committees. Our other subcommittees are also held only by pro members. And so we really make sure that the pro community are the ones that are dictating how RAMPD is operating and what we're doing as we move forward. We're probably most well known for the work that we've done with the Recording Academy. RAMPD through LACHI and a lot of other members helped build up the accessibility of the red carpet with the Grammys. And so we had ramps installed, we brought ASL to the red carpet for media interviews, and that dais in the center of the telecast was designed as a wheelchair accessible stage. so that if someone were to win a Grammy in a wheelchair, they wouldn't have to go behind production in order to receive it. We've similarly done a lot of work with Netflix, including a composers roundtable with them. We've been sending our members out to Folk Alliance and Music Biz, and so hopefully as you're exploring spaces in the industry, you are starting to meet our members and see our people. And we're here to continue that mission and message. Our first and foremost thing is we really want other people to come and join RAMP. And so if you yourself identify as disabled or neurodiverse, or you have a rare disease or chronic condition, if your artist does, if your peer or coworker does, or a friend, please let them know about our organization. We're here to build that community first, and everything else that we do stems from there. And so I'd like to go to our questions. So the first question I wanted to ask both of you is, as a professional in the music industry, what are either the strengths or the barriers that you're facing that are unique to your experience in your career and with that disability identity? And why don't we start with you, Jay?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I identify as neurodivergent. So to get a little more specific into my letters, as I like to call them, I have anxiety at times. I have CPTSD, borderline ADHD. My brain just works different, which to me is an extreme advantage, right? Because the way that my brain works, it's very not necessarily compartmentalized, but I have systems for everything, right? So with me being a manager, and a couple different types of managers, so not only just an artist manager, I do a lot of project management, which means that I am kind of playing captain, if you would, with a team of different people and creators, and our goal is to get whatever the goals that might be, whether it's releasing a project, rebranding somebody, doing a brand deal, all kind of things. So there's a lot of balancing involved. There's a lot of multitasking, which sometimes can be overwhelming for a, let's say, neurotypical brain, which I don't really think that they are. I think everybody's brains work differently because we're different people. So I don't understand how things are neurotypical. Everybody's a different person. But anyway, we won't get into the, specifics of it. But because of the fact that my brain works differently, I'm able to handle stress a lot better than a typical person, which if you're an artist manager, you're stressed 25/8. There's no day that you don't wake up and it's like, all hell is breaking loose. I woke up today at 6:30 and I had 14 text messages already with just things going crazy for right? So it allows me to handle stress. It allows me to multitask. It allows me to create systems for everything, which is great because in the music industry, a lot of people come to us as the managers looking for the plays, if you will, or the answers of how to do something. So because I already work in systems, there's almost like a playbook for everything. Okay, we got to release a music video. What do we have to do? I already have a system for that. We need to upload a song. I already have a system for that. We need to figure out, how do we get booking? We're having an issue with it. I have a system for everything. So it works to my advantage because it's almost like an answer to everything already pre-done, because that's how my brain needs to function. It needs to be order. It needs to be systems. It needs to be organization. When it's not, it's pure chaos. So most artists are what? Unorganized. So when you come to me, I'm going to organize everything and it's not so much chaos. So to me, that's an advantage of being able to be neurodivergent that everybody doesn't have.
No, I mean, you're right on everyone needs organization skills, right? And when you are kind of start out, a little late to the starting line with those skills and have to develop them, you end up building really robust systems because you're compensating for that. Are there any tools that you specifically really like or use or recommend that have been useful for that process?
Yeah, very much. So I like I use a project management app day to day. So not only for like the actual projects I'm managing, for me to take care of like how many clients. So I use Monday. Some people have used like Asana or Trello or something like that. I'm literally sitting in front of a table full of sticky notes. So I'm always having sticky notes. I have notes on my phone. I write things on my mirror. There are alarms everywhere. I like to do what we call block working. So I can get anything I see shiny, it's gonna lose my attention, right? So my attention span, I already know it's terrible. So I make it now so that like I'll work in a 45-minute block, and that means I have to turn my phone like completely off, or it has to be on airplane mode so I can focus on these things. But after that, then I kind of go like reward myself and celebrate, which is like outside. So for me, nature, believe it or not, is something that helps me work better. Like I'll literally go sit outside and go do 30 emails that I've been avoiding doing all day. But if I go sit outside right by this tree and by this lake, everything will get done. Or I realize I get more things done in like sensory, I guess, situations where I'm having sensory support. So one day I went to the nail salon and I was getting a pedicure, and Law and Order is on TV, right? But I just realized, I'm like, wow, while I was sitting here 45 minutes, I got 3 contracts done, about 15 emails, and it just was because I was stimulated. Somebody's rubbing my feet. Law and Order is one of my favorite shows. We got emails going. So the biggest thing that I've learned recently is just how to work with my brain. And again, I need organization. So stickies are everywhere. There are notes on the mirrors. There are whiteboards all over the place. So as long as I can kind of see things and keep lists so I can check stuff off, I'm good. Find me without a sticky note or without a note, I done lost everything.
No, I love it. Grim, what about you? What are some either challenges or specific strengths that you've found that your disabilities bring to the table?
Yeah, definitely. I relate a lot to what Jay said, because I am neurodivergent too. And I have PTSD, ADHD, and I have some some chronic health issues as well. And I guess, challenges, I had a lot of challenges growing up, I will say, with school and things like that. And I actually went into teaching, and I was a teacher for 14 years, special education teacher, because I really wanted to, I don't know, make a difference and do things differently than what I got as a student. And then from there, I was a vocational counselor for 7 years. And while I was doing that, I started Grimalkin. Yeah, it's sort of grown since then. But yeah, I will say, just with organization, over the years, I've developed different skills to help myself stay focused and being able to accomplish things that I needed to get done. And we use TIDAL, which is like Trello, so that's a task management system. And we do that with like all the folks that are part of Grimalkin as well. And we have like different boards, one for the interns, one for the board and collective members. And then we have like our festival board. And on each of them, there's different tasks and they get organized. And that's really helped a lot of people who've struggled. And I would say most of the folks that we work with, they are disabled or neurodivergent. Almost every artist is part of Grimalkin. And I think that's because we put it out there, the message that this is a place for folks that are disabled and neurodivergent. So it's normal, we're normalizing it, because I think there's more people that are, in my opinion, I feel like there's probably more people disabled and neurodivergent than maybe than maybe not so. And like if not now, they will come up, they will have something in the future. I mean, that's happened to me too. I've had chronic health issues I didn't have as a child, I have now as an adult. So we would just work to I'm, because I come from that like special education background, we do try to individualize things with our artists and kind of meet people where they're at, find out like what their what their strengths are, what their challenges are, and helping people develop the things that work, the strategies that work for them. And sometimes that's some trial and error, because what works for me or works for Jay, isn't necessarily going to work for everyone, right? Everybody like has to figure that out for themselves, but we can provide them options and trying things out. And yeah, I think that's really important. And I'm not sure what else to share in that regard.
No, yeah. No, 100%. And we'll touch on the artist side of that in a second. But that's a good point too. I mean, there is no universal accommodation, right? Often the best accommodation is just sitting down and asking, what do you need to be productive? Like, what do you need to be successful? And then making sure that we're making the tools and the conversations and the space where those can be expressed is the most powerful thing. It's not just like having ramps installed or setting up breaks during the day, right? It's that conversation and that open space. I do see that we got Shelly in. Hi, Shelly. Would you like to make a quick introduction for yourself?
Yes, I'm going to say hi, this is Shelly. I am part of RAMPD, and I'll be working on partnerships for RAMPD coming up this fall. And I represent the world of invisible disabilities.
And can you tell us a little bit about what's your career in the industry?
The short, elevator pitch is that I worked in the music industry for 30 years, mostly in digital marketing and streaming, and worked for a variety of companies, from tech companies, DSPs, record labels, distributors, you name it. And that's me. Does that help?
Perfect. No, 100%. And now we're up to speed. So the question was, what strengths or challenges are you encountering in your career through your disability or neurodivergence?
Oh, my career path has completely changed in the last, I'm having the largest pivot of my life. I don't think it's a midlife crisis though, because I'm really happy with the outcome. I'm leaving sort of the corporate world for nonprofit and policy, and potentially working on an equity fund for minorities from LGBTQ to females, BIPOC, you name it. And, or any other companies that want to support that cause. It's an investment fund that hopefully will be able to build some capital that we actually own and can give back to our employees and our members.
And how was that spurred by, if you don't mind talking about it, like how was your career transition influenced by disability?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I spent 25 of the 30 years probably hiding my disabilities from all of my employers, and in some cases it didn't work out, and in some cases it was fine. But at the end of the day, I wasn't treated nicely, and I just decided that I didn't want to work for a company that didn't have DEI policies and that wasn't interested in my personal well-being and my health. So I came out of hiding, Arthur, you're the one that said to me, well, how's that working out for you with the hiding? And I was like, oh, yeah, it's really not. So I'm out now, and I'm here to represent people that actually have skill sets and value that are right now being marginalized.
No, I love that. And, it's disclosure is very much a part of this journey, right? Especially in the corporate world. I mean, I never openly identified as neurodivergent until I started working with RAMPD. And it took a lot of culture shift to find a place where that can be a source of strength rather than being concerned about how that might negatively impact a career path. And I mean, to that point, and I'll open this to everybody, how can we balance, our careers and this difficult industry that we're in with being your authentic self in your workplace and in your peer spaces?
I mean, I just feel like there's multiple things that have happened to me that I just think shouldn't be happening in this day and age. And, I've always given my best self. And I think all of our artists and our creative folk and our managers and everyone that is a part of RAMPD works their ass off. And I just feel like we're no different than anyone else. And I really think that, if we're talking 20% of the population has some sort of disability, then you're just, limiting yourself on the people that you might not be either wanting to represent as an artist or, not wanting to hire as a candidate for employment. I feel like there should be way more options for us.
Grim?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll add to that. I have never been able to be out about being queer or disabled ever in Silker and then of course within RAMPD. It's just one of those things where you're just not sure. And even if you're in a so-called like more progressive city like Los Angeles, because I taught there for a while, or like being in vocational counseling where there were, people tend to be more progressive in that field. you know, you just don't know. And in order to, for safety reason, and just so you don't have to deal with the hassle, you just try to mask these things so that you don't, it doesn't have to be an issue, you know. So when I started Grimalkin, like that was really, and then I shifted to that full time. This has been the only space in which I could be fully myself. And it's made a huge impact on my well-being and my mental health, which I hadn't even considered until I was able to be this, you know, myself. So that was kind of like eye-opening for me, and that's really sad. You know, there should be that shouldn't be we shouldn't have to hide our identities, and instead people should be able to see how, you know, certain things about us that make us different are a benefit and they add to what other people are trying to accomplish.
No, 100%. And you're right. I mean, a lot of times when folks aren't able to express their full selves, that leads to comorbid neurodiversities, right? Like whether it's PTSD from traumatic events or the anxieties that start to build up from being afraid to express yourself. Jay, what about you? Anything on the disclosure journey?
Oh yeah, this is the year of the disclosure journey, if you would. So Arthur knows. I'm not sure if anybody else, but
Yeah.
this is my first year of what I came out of the closet again, if you would. The first closet I kind of was standing already in front of it by default, if you would. But this is my first year actually publicly disclosing that I was neurodivergent. So I've been dealing with mental health things for years, and it's crazy because if you would have asked me this question like almost a year ago to the date, I would have had a totally different answer, right? So around this time last year, this was the first time that I actually met Arthur and Lachi, and I remember seeing Lachi on a webinar and being like, yo, she is just an amazing woman who like does not care what the hell anybody thinks, right? And that was power to me for real. Like, if anybody ever see or hear Lachi, the way she introduces herself is like, she don't take no shit. And I love that for real, right? So when I met them, it was just to see it in person and be like, yo, she's like 100% like authentically herself and does not care what anybody think. And believe it or not, like I sat in the car for like 30 minutes and kind of just cried about it because I'm like, yo, like I want to get to that point for real, for like, what am I hiding from everybody to try to make everybody else comfortable, but I'm not comfortable, right? So typically I work on like the hip hop kind of rap side where it's like everybody probably is for real, but everybody's just afraid to talk about it, right? So I got to the point I'm realizing like I'm being uncomfortable trying to blend in with everybody else who is also faking and masking it as well. And we're all uncomfortable. What's the point? There is no point, right? So in October, I officially joined RAMP. And then this past February, I went to Folk Alliance to speak about being neurodivergent for the first time ever. So I've always spoken and said like, yeah, I have mental health, but I never fully said what it was because I was afraid, especially being like a leader and a manager, if you would, that people would, I don't know, kind of think some kind of way or say some type of thing. Like the first thing that came to my head was like, somebody doesn't want me controlling their career if I have X, Y, and Z. They're going to see that as a detriment some type of way. But now I flipped it. And even in doing so, with just being more candid about it, speaking about it after Folk, I wound up getting like 2 or 3 other, speaking engagements about it. And I'm also realizing that like, not only like I already knew some of my clients were kind of different, if you were, right? Just by realizing we're similar. So the more that I started speaking about my own self, and even with family, they started realizing like, okay, like that's cool. You're really standing on your thing. You're really taking care of yourself. You're doing what needs to be done for you. Like I don't hang out in the clubs and stuff if it's not a booking, because that's not an environment that I like. Even when it comes to family stuff, it's like I have a time limit on everything. I need to be home. That's where I like to be. That's my comfort spot for real. So it's honoring these things. And then in doing so, I'm making an example of people around me. And now they're taking better care of themselves and they're, authentically being themselves as well. So the whole kind of gist of it was like being authentically myself and no longer masking regardless of what I was worried about anybody saying or thinking, and just making sure that I am okay. Then change the whole environment around me because everybody's doing the same thing. So now the whole crew is healthier. You feel me? Everybody else is worrying about their boundaries and what they need. And it's like, wow, we started this positive domino effect by just authentically being ourselves. So if anything, it was a catalyst to everybody becoming healthier and being in their own boundaries, but also just not masking anymore for anybody or anything. So it's like, you get what you get these days. I can't hide it anymore.
No, I love that. And it makes a great point. I mean, at the end of the day, you know, sometimes it really just takes one person to face that fear and be open and loud and proud enough to make that new space for other people to also start raising their hands, no matter how timid, to start exploring a safer place to express, if not necessarily a disability or neurodivergence, at least a need, right? And at least something that will make them be more their fuller selves in their you know, work environment and teams. And I mean, to that point, so like, you know, again, this is a manager forum. We all work with artists, and so, you know, what's the side of that with artists? And so I myself, I'm operations at RAMPD, but I am also the business manager for Lottie, our CEO. And in fact, right now I'm out in LA because Lottie's doing an event. And as part of the things that I've taken on in my management role is to be her sighted companion, because Lottie's blind. And so I travel with her, I help her navigate events. And so even if we're like in a crazy club at 2 a.m., which is not the space that I like to be in, I can help Lottie navigate and be successful in her career and the relationships we're building. So what are ways that managers or artists, those that are working for and with artists who may have disabilities that they may or may not be publicly disclosing, how can us as an industry be supportive of those stories and those people?
I'll start.
Okay.
I think the best way is, especially like with whoever you're managing, whether it's artist, brand, or whatever. I feel like even if you don't disclose it publicly, there needs to be transparency between the both of you all, right? As much as possible, because I can't help you as a manager if I don't know what's going on, and vice versa. There are times where, like, even though we're the managers, the artists are helping us, regardless of what it is. Sometimes they have a better connect on a flight, or, you know, their cousin has a house and we all can stay there together. It's crazy things that happen when you're managing, right? So I think the transparency is imperative, because if not, we're working with the facade. I can't make things be better for you. I can't figure out how to accommodate you if I don't know what I need to be helping you with. And again, it doesn't have to be publicly displayed, but it's always like I always tell my clients, like, we can be in a loop, right? We can have something totally different with the world, but I need to know what you need so I can help you. At the same time, as of this year, I don't hide what I need from the clients when it comes to me being neurodivergent as well, right? So sometimes I'm just like, yo, I'll hang out with you all day. I'll be in the club with you all day, all night. When we get in, we need separate rooms though, bro. Like, I can't hang out with the crew type thing. Like, y'all want to be up to 6, 7 in the morning. Normally I'm with it, but sometimes I'm not with it. So to make sure I'm prepared for both sides, you feel me? Make sure that I have my own room and my own space. So if I need quietness, I can do that. Make sure that, you know, I need fidget toys. That's something that I need, but that's something that I also provided for artists as well, because they sit here like, you know, I don't know what's going on last night. My chest was just bouncing. It's like, you were having a panic attack, bro, but you got to tell me these things so I can help you get through it. So that transparency for me has helped a lot of my artists mentally, because now they don't feel like they even have to hide it from me anymore. So sometimes we're knowing things that friends, families, loved ones don't know, but because we're with them so much, or that we have to make sure that they're taken care of when we're doing other things, we know the things. So a lot of times when it comes with clients, even though we're dealing with a lot of the business side, a lot of my conversations that I have with clients are about mental stuff, and just, you know, how are you? How are you feeling? What's going on at home? Are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? You need to get in therapy. Do you need to go take a retreat weekend? Like, what do you need? Because if your mind's not in the right place in a state, nothing's going to get done for real, for real. And same thing with me. So at the end of the day, it's transparency. That way we know how to help each other. We can't mask with each other. You can mask with the world, but tell me what it really is so I can make sure you're okay out of everybody else.
No, I love that. And, you know, a big, you know, life lesson for everybody, disabled or not, from the disability community is interdependence, right? Being able to help each other out when we need it. And that starts with communicating what those needs are so that we can help in the first place. Grim, Shelly, any thoughts on helping with, you know, artists that are disabled?
Yeah, actually, a few thoughts to Jay's point, actually earlier and now. You know, I've had a lot of different experiences. I'll be honest, like being open has not worked out for me. But yet hiding hasn't worked out for me either. And I think that the main difference between my story and your story is the people that I'm working with are not the right people for me to have as clients, or are not the right people to be my boss. Because if there's no level of understanding between you and your artist, and you try to be honest and it backfires on you because of these reasons, it would have fallen apart anyway. That's my feeling. From the artist's perspective, well, also to my other point about managers, I don't feel like managers always take care of themselves, in the sense that they are making that separation of church and state and saying like, no, I don't want to be up with you guys at 4 a.m. partying. You know, like, yes, you do those things, but it's also the people that are calling you on Thanksgiving Day when you're trying to have dinner with your family and your kids. You know, it's also the ridiculous stuff that you have to deal with sometimes, like band members arguing or whatever it is that brings you into a more of a not managing your career, but I'm parenting you role, for lack of a better, you know. So I feel like that line gets really, really blurred when you are on the management side. From the band side, from the artist side, I feel like a lot of the professionals are really used to dealing with artists that come forward and say, hey, I'm neurodivergent and I need X time where I'm not doing TikToks, I'm not going on tour, I'm not doing X, Y, and Z. And so therefore, you know, I can't accommodate you in that way, you know? So I kind of feel like there's two sides, right? Like, we understand that from, let's say, a label perspective, when an artist comes and says, hey, I'm having an issue and I need to take time out. Maybe I need to go to rehab. Maybe I need, who knows, maybe someone in their family, you know, passed away. I feel like those are the things that we understand and we make concessions for on the marketing side or on the publicity side or on like the touring side. So I feel like those things are more common being handled and being used to being heard from an artist perspective. It's almost like you're right. You had mentioned, Jay, that, you know, you're already feeling a lot of your artists are already neurodivergent anyway, because they're so creative and they have so many like different thoughts and they're kind of all over the place creatively. That's what makes them amazing artists, right? So I kind of feel like, I don't know why there's this weird stigma on the executive side when we know half of our artists are probably neurodivergent or queer or whatever. You know, put your checkbox on whatever's going on with your artist, but it's usually more than one thing. And, you know, they're just as human as we all are. So I don't understand the, you know, the stigma and the unwillingness to talk about it from the executive side or from like the professional but non-artist side. And those are what I was going to say, just to contrast and also agree with you at the same time, if that makes sense.
It's because we're the parents. That's all. We're the parents and they're our kids. The parents are never supposed to make any mistakes or do anything wrong. That's how we're looked at. We're the parents and they're the kids.
It's a good point of like, because at the end of the day, you know, an artist wants their manager to be effective, right? And so being able to respect work-life balance, being able to respect barriers, but also understanding how to best utilize and make their manager productive, just like an employer that wants to make sure that their employees are productive by getting their accessibility needs covered. Artists should have those in mind and be communicating that about their manager's need as well. It's a good point. Grim, you said you've got I think you said everybody under Grimalkin identifies in some way. What does that space look like with, you know, the entire community identifying as disabled or neurodivergent?
Yeah, well, I wanted to, based off of what Jay and Shelly said, I had some thoughts. I think one of the things that we did with Grimalkin is we absolutely normalized it. This is like a normal thing. And if you can get more artists and have more managers, especially, or people, you know, people in a management role, being outspoken about, you know, their you know, disabilities or being neurodivergent, and showing folks how actually those things have been a benefit to them in different ways, or it's allowed them to be able to do or accomplish certain things, because it's certainly the case, you know, for me. And on Shelly's point too about boundaries. If you're like in a management role, you know, making sure you have clear expectations, clear boundaries, for, you know, yourself, and to encourage that too with the folks that you're working with. And one of the things we encourage at Grimalkin is, you know, folks getting help if they need it with mental health, because that's, I mean, everybody's struggling these days. I mean, if you weren't struggling before the pandemic, chances are you're absolutely struggling now. And it even myself, you know, I went back into therapy again because of I wanted to be a better leader, a better manager. And I had realized there were some things in my past and some traumas that I hadn't, you know, really addressed. And I was seeing how they actually were affecting my ability to be running Grimalkin and things like that. And so that's something that I openly talk about I think just being more open about these things. But of course, I never felt I could be open about these things when I was a teacher or a vocational counselor. So I think you do need to kind of build a space first that is welcoming to that. And then from there, you know, you're surrounding yourselves with other, you know, thought leaders or whatnot that also feel the same way. And then you're making that normal. And, you know, and that's really, you know, what I feel like, you know, what we're trying to do with Grimalkin, and hopefully other people will see that and take note and maybe, you know, like do better if they're not doing those things in their communities or organizations or nonprofits or whatever, businesses.
No, 100%. No, love it. And you know, the more that we take these lessons and export them beyond the community, right? Because like a lot of times when disco gets together, the disability community, we start forming these like shared languages and understandings, but figuring out how to export it so that it can continue to be inclusive and continue to be kind of universally understood and accessible. We really get a lot of big things done that way. So love it. I want to ask Sharon, do we have any questions in there? I'm just being mindful of time. And we'd also love to hear if anyone has that's been watching, if you've got a story of you know, disability or neurodivergence, either from yourself or someone that you've worked with that you'd like to share, you know, one way or the other.
I'm not seeing any questions at the moment, but certainly if you have any, please do let us know. I'm really fascinated by everything that you do. I guess we're a community of managers. If there was one thing that we should take and implement in our worlds, is there one thing that you would recommend? I mean, obviously this is a big subject and there are many things here, but is there one thing you think is the most overlooked of the things that we do?
Sure. So I think our number one suggestion is to let people know about RAMPD. The RAMPD is quite new, but the idea should not have been. This sense of being able to build a community in the industry from other professionals and peers that identify as disabled and neurodiverse, that's unfortunately a really new thing. We did it because it didn't exist before. And, you know, so from that context, I'd like to hear from all three of y'all, you know, like what the power of community can bring. And even though we're so young, you know, where do you all see the potential for RAMPD bringing real institutional change to our music industry in the next decade or something?
I'll jump in and say, if you're you know, running your own business or something like that, you can make the effort to reach out and collaborate with other organizations like RAMPD or Grimalkin. You know, collaboration is really important. And if you're not maybe not sure where to start because you don't have experience with working with folks, which you probably, like Shelly pointed out, you probably are already, and maybe you don't know it. But yeah, just finding outside resources if you don't have them internally.
I have something to add to that also. This is Shelly. Thanks, Graham. I completely agree with what you're saying. It's interesting because I've been researching this and trying to figure out how can you be more inclusive environment from your side as whether you're the manager or whether you're, working at a record label or what have you. And there's actually, a lot of things that I feel like you can do in general for your employees. And I'm talking about too, not just the artists, but the people that work under you. Maybe it's your social media person that works with all the artists. Maybe it's, the tour manager that's on the road. So all of the people that are on your team as management, are there things that you are offering them? I think it's easy for bigger companies to have LGBTQ only meetups. One of the things that I find is interesting is there are certain companies that I've been looking into that are employee owned that actually offer quite a bit more than that. Like there's literally a team. If you're a person and you have, let's say neurodiversity, you can just start a neurodiversity team and anyone can join it, and you can do offsite, meetings, or you can have meetings with the DEI folks on how to work, how the 5 of you in your group can work with the rest of the company. And they give you a voice to actually speak up and say what your accessibility needs are as an employee. There are also things like, beyond the networking events and beyond the teams and the groups that you can, I used to think it fosters more friendships too between people on small teams. Maybe you get to know somebody better because you're in that same boat where you're both hiding previously. There's also, a lot of other things like for the artists, I think we're used to looking for things like gender neutral restrooms, but I think it's important if you're leasing office space or something like that, where you're going to need to have artists coming in that might not fit that, description of that perfect box to, think about where your environment is and how you're, accepting those people onto your team, but also looking at the people that are on your team and maybe not realizing who also fits those needs and those profiles, but that you haven't really seen yet because they're in hiding or they're not talking about it openly. So I think there's a lot of things that you can look into doing as a team member, even not just for yourself, but for the rest of your team and for, better communication between yourself and your artists.
I would definitely just piggyback off that with, we focus so much on the business side, I feel like, right, that we lose the aspect that everybody's a human at the end of the day. So I think bringing back, the human nature of what we do so much with business was sometimes having, I don't want to necessarily say meetings or activations, but I like to do what we call no business time type thing. So where we do events kind of for morale or to get to know everybody a little more so we can understand, even if a person doesn't necessarily want to disclose what they may have, whether it's disability, whether they need accommodations, but just getting to know each other as human beings so that we have a better vibe with each other overall. I feel like we work better, and that's in any industry, any realm, when we all realize that we're just humans at the end of the day. So small things of just making sure doing a weekly check-in, how are you? And normally you'll get a reply I'm gonna get this done and da-da-da. I was I'm not talking about that. How are you type thing. When was the last time you took some self-care for yourself? When was the last time you went to the gym and worked out to make sure you're okay? Are you eating? When's the last time you drank some water? I feel like one of my clients, I literally have to text him every other day and just ask, because this is what I know he doesn't have, right? And this is also realizing he's human. He's not gonna remember to get his music ready for copyright because his brain's foggy, because we don't allow the last time that man had some water for real. So just remembering that people are humans and asking folks small things like, how are you? How's your day? You feel me? How are you? Do you need help with anything? Do you need space to talk? Do you need space to vent? Do you need a hug? You want to go just listen. I'm not close, but listen, you can go get a bowl of ramen, I can get one, and I'll sit right in front of you and we can have dinner together, because sometimes people just need that human aspect and a little bit of love and whatever that might be. So I think for me, to not only get the accommodations I need, but to also provide them, is just remembering that people are humans at the end of the day outside of this business.
There was a really important question here, and I don't want to wrap this up prematurely just to keep on schedule. We got a question here. If a young disabled person wanted to build a career as a manager, what steps would you advise they take, and what skills do they need to build?
Networking, that's the first thing that you need in any sort of entertainment industry, because you don't know when you're going to partner up and do something cool, either from like a creative musical perspective or from like a business perspective. Just, I feel like if you're open to working with a large variety of people and you're willing to be that person that says, hi, my name is whatever, even if you're just doing it over email. And I realize that not everyone is comfortable doing that. In some way, like find what works for you. If you're not comfortable like going to parties and socializing and doing that thing, reach out to someone on LinkedIn and do a short little like, hey, this is what I'm looking at, and I saw that you have experience in this thing. Can we talk about that? And set up a time, just be respectful and, try to do it in your way of what works for you. But I do feel like it's important to just get yourself out there in every way, whether you're an artist or an executive. That's like the number one thing. And then the other thing, like I was saying, is just be open to what the industry might bring you, because sometimes you're looking for one thing and you'll get an opportunity for something that's completely out of the box and not what you were thinking at all. And I feel like if you're open to some of those possibilities, you can really, explore some creative partnerships with people that you didn't expect when you first started. So those are the two things that I would say are important from a management perspective. There's many, many, many other steps in terms of like how to be a manager. And I feel like Jay is probably more qualified to speak on that than me. So, but from an industry perspective, whether a manager or any other professional, that's what I would say to you from an entertainment perspective.
And I gotta say, being an MMF is like great place to start that networking journey. I mean, I myself, MMF was one of the very first places and communities that I was welcomed into, and I've managed to meet so many amazing people through that. Ramped again, we're trying to make community space anywhere that you can find a place where you have affinity and connection with why those people are grouping together. You will find your family and you will find your network. Did anyone else want to answer that question?
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. I think the number one thing you kind of need to figure out to become a manager is understanding what the job of a manager actually is. And what I mean by that is right now in the industry, like management is blurred lines between a lot of different things, right? And I think there's a lot of different roles in the industry that are like that as well. So sometimes people think your manager is your investor or your social media management or your content creator or your therapist or your personal advisor. Like there's a lot of different roles that kind of get blurred, if you will. So I think understanding what the actual role of a manager is and also figuring out your boundaries kind of early. I wish I would have figured out my boundaries way earlier than where I'm at right now, because that put me in a lot of crazy situations that I probably shouldn't have been in as a manager, right? So I think understanding the role and figuring out what your job actually is and then kind of finding a niche in that situation to be able to become value for someone, that way they do want to hire you as their manager. Because I think that having value, and value can be your network, it can be your knowledge, it can be how creative you are. It might be the fact that you are good at social media and you can help this person manage their social media until they can afford one or until they get to that point. Or maybe you're good at administration stuff and they have no idea what that type of thing is. So kind of figure out what your niche is. And what I mean by niche is like, what is it that you love? What is it that you're passionate about that comes to music? Or what do you feel like you can accentuate an artist with? Whether it is, I can talk better, I can present stuff, I can pitch stuff. Figure out what your niche is and hone it for real, because that's what's going to make you different from everybody else and create value for you. That way you are that sought out manager, and these people who are looking for guidance are going to come to you and say, wow, you seem like you're really well-rounded or do X, Y, Z good. You're somebody I want to have on my team.
Love it. And then Grim, any last words?
Everything that was said was awesome. I guess the only other advice I'd give is to seek learning cohorts that you can be a part of, and seek people that you can get mentoring from, and not just one person, actively seek that throughout your entire career. I mean, I still do that myself.
Love it. No, thank you. Great. So Sharon, unless any other burning questions?
That's it. Thank you. So excited that we could finally do this. We've been talking about this a while. I'm so glad we could do this. And thanks to Graham and Jai and Shelly and Arthur, yourself, for being part of this and just bringing just a wealth of experience and knowledge to our community on such an important subject. So really thank you. And thanks to everybody who attended. And we'll get this up on our YouTube so it'll keep living as a resource for everybody going forward. This is really important stuff. So
Yeah, please, everybody come join us at RAMPD and MMF, because like we need the voices and we need the representation. So if you are part of our community, I'm telling you, these are the most welcoming places that you can come. And that's the first place that you start building your community. So thanks, everybody.